Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. Welcome to episode 39 of Everything Teams Phone Live. We apologize we're 1 minute late today, but that's okay.
Oh, happy Friday, Rick.
It's our show.
That's
Happy
right.
Friday, everybody. The weekend's coming up. We're pretty excited. Although, the weekend comes up every single week that we do this every Friday, and we never tell everyone to have a happy weekend or have a nice weekend or something like that. And today seems appropriate. Have a nice weekend, everyone. This is going to be great. Let's talk about Microsoft Teams a little bit. Get everybody excited about it.
Let's do it. I guess the idea is we're going to continue the Teams can do that.
That's it. The teams can do that. It's interesting. We have conversations every single day with customers. And if you're listening, city of blank, 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 I won't say the city of, but we have conversations with cities and counties and our buddies at Microsoft, our city guy at Microsoft. How's it going? High five to you. But they ask questions that cities ask questions that a lot of organizations maybe have questions on and maybe don't come out right and say it, right? Because if you think about voice over IP penetration into the enterprise space, I think we're like 30 to 35% penetrated. So that means there's still 60 or 65% of the businesses out there are still sitting on legacy equipment and they're struggling with how do we do this? How do we, the last time I did a phone upgrade 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? And I'm not saying me, I'm talking about this is the IT guy, right? Or gal in an organization. The last time they did a phone cut, as an example, it was a really difficult thing. You got a vendor in there, they're running around plugging stuff in, you've got a carrier that you're navigating the port with, and you're going to pull one cable and go into the other. And so I thought in this episode, when we go Teams Can Do That Continued, we're going to talk about some specific examples of questions that people ask when we're talking about migrating services from a legacy phone system, because that is the group, that's the organization that we want to let know this is way easier than you think it is. Now, it also depends on where those organizations are gathering information from. Okay, so as an example, city of bloop was having a discussion with a hardware vendor. So they naturally, that's kind of the instinct. The instinct is to go to, okay, let me go. I've got a Cisco that I'm replacing, so let me go to someone like not a Cisco, but let me go to an SBC provider and go, hey, what do I do to get Teams Phone? Oh, great, no problem. We sell you some SBCs. You host the SBCs. You get some SIP trunks. You connect this up to Teams. And voila, you've got direct routing. That's French, by the way. Voila is French.
Voila.
I just came from France. Anyway, so then you've got Teams calling, but there's all sorts of inherent sort of, I'm not going to say issues, but there's inherent problems that you introduce when you're doing that.
It's challenges. It's now you've got your teams need to learn new systems, and I'm not saying there's not learning to Teams Phone itself, but the learning curve is much lower than a complex SBC that you're trying to set up for direct routing. How to get devices maybe registering in and out of that if you're using the SBC, also to hang devices off of that for complex setups. Yeah, there's a lot involved that then could lead to issues with incorrect configurations, I guess is my interjection there.
Yeah. So if you think about the IT guy or gal who's listening to this, and they're kind of going, how do I take my team to Teams Phone? This, because the way that this sounds, it sounds complex. Whether someone's trying to make it sound complex or not, to them it sounds complex. And when we are thinking about, like, I feel like I could just scribble it on a board how simple it is, for sort of operator connect providers, right? Like, this is a really Teams Phone, and this is the conversation that we've had with Jason, technical guy over at Microsoft, over and over again. And it's like, when you're used to managing a deep infrastructure like a Cisco infrastructure, or Mitel, ShoreTel, Avayas, you go, there's got to be more of this, right? Like, this is too easy. And the truth is there's actually not. It actually is a really simple approach. I'm looking at a large Cisco migration right now, and I look at that and I go, they've got clusters of call managers, right? And they're aggregating it with UCM. I forget what that is. Anyway, the SBC for Cisco, right? So they're aggregating it in a couple of different clusters.
The Cube.
The Cube, thank you. And you look at that and you go, this is a big infrastructure to go replace, but man, Teams is just flat. It's like a flat, I would almost call it like a flat network. It's that simple, right? Where you've got the end users and you've got the core corporate routing. And then you go, okay, what's the telephony component? Well, it's an operator connect provider. Like at the end of the day, you want to be in an operator connect provider. And it's interesting. I was reaffirmed the complexities of deploying SBCs or doing direct routing as an example, because I use the example and make sure I have no disrespect to anybody out there that's deploying direct routing, but literally you could be a person in your garage, right? Hosting an SBC in Azure, buying SIP trunks from a very small SIP trunking provider, and then deliver services to a company and go, I'm a provider. I'm providing services to so-and-so, right? And that to me is a scary proposition when you're talking about voice for a business. So with that background, we're going to cover some things that Teams can do. And we're going to start with the big question about 911. And because Brandon, last time we started down the road of 911, and what I'd love to see is, I want you to start thinking about this so that we can show it. What is a 911 from a policy perspective? If you were popping in and doing 911 from a policy perspective, let me set the stage here again from a 911 question perspective. Obviously, if you're deploying a physical phone system or you're used to having a physical phone system, one of your main concerns is 911. And there's a couple of different ways that you do 911 today. And now you're going into Teams environment. You're like, how does Teams handle 911? And so I think that's an important thing to cover. And I'm going to give the highlights, Brandon, while you're digging up the details and showing the policy here. But the highlight here is, if you're a facility and you've got buildings, so let's say you got one location, a physical location. I'm going to go one location because that makes it simple. And you have employees that are spread out, and maybe some are working remote, maybe some are in small remote offices, or they're at home, and they come into the office. Okay, so when someone can come into the office, there's a policy that basically says when they step foot and use the internet at the office, that means they're going to use a 911 policy that the administrator sets. And so the administrator is saying, hey, if you call 911 from this location, it's going to go to G12. G12 is going to send it to the correct PSAP, and the correct PSAP is going to send the authorities to that corporate location. Now, extend beyond that and get outside the corporate location. If the policy is such that it allows the end user to update their location for 911, then what happens? Then that person's 911 location that they addressed is then overriding the location information, and then sending authorities to that particular location. So that's the backdrop for you, Brandon. Why don't you show us how this actually works?
I probably should have been working on sharing my screen while you were talking. I don't know why I do this. I wait every time. And I'm like, oh, now I got to remember how to share my screen. You'd think I'd learn, but
I know.
Maybe my age is starting to show.
That or the bourbon.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. Yeah, speaking of which, since you brought it up, yesterday was I would call it just a good strategy session. We announced the Momentum deal. I met with Momentum yesterday, had a great, high level strategy session around all things Teams, like, where we want to go with it. So anyway, all that to say, all these topics were discussed at some point, probably yesterday at a very high level. Yeah, let's talk about 911 and how you as a corporate location can set up policies to dictate the compliance around 911, and how you can allow roaming and and allowing users dynamic allocation of 911 if they're, say, working from home or they're going to, some conference or something.
There we go.
There's really some just two basic things that you need to take into consideration. Then from that perspective, you can go get as granular in the setup as you want. The first of which is your network topology, where you're going to start defining things like what sites. This could represent a physical location. It could represent maybe a boundary that you want to set up, because we could get into a much deeper topic about what you can actually do with network sites besides 911, but we'll keep it focused on 911 for now. So like I've got a G12 headquarter site that I can set my 911 policy behavior around. Do I want to do, specific location based routing for other things besides 911? I can define what my network looks like in that site for the trusted network. And then the last piece, once you set up your site and you define your network for that site, you're going to want to define your trusted IPs that Microsoft is going to see and use to define that user as being located in that location. So as an example of this top subnet might be the corporate headquarter building, or maybe it's a specific floor in the building. That's going to be what on the client side. So if we pop up the client, which I think I have here, give me one sec. It's trying to reconnect me. When you turn on location services, which is required for 911 on the dial pad, which I took my number away, so let me switch to a different user. All this testing stuff that I'm.
Yeah, you get buried and you get the like 8 users and different tenants and everything. You get buried in that stuff.
Yeah. And I don't have 911 on this, so give me a second. I'll fix that. But my point being is you need location services turned on the client that sits on the user's desktop. It's going to associate that IP back to this configuration within Microsoft, and then it's going to tie you to the network site. Okay, so that's kind of high level, the first consideration around defining your topology. The next is defining, as I mentioned earlier, the networks within the sites and tying it to the location. And then from there, if you need to get more granular, you'll see up at the top that you can actually go beyond just subnets, right? You can define access points. So,
that's good. Access points is a good one.
Yeah, like as an example, I was at a business downtown Denver yesterday for this meeting, and I was in this building. This complex has two towers, the North Tower and the South Tower, and then within each of those towers, obviously, is multiple tenants for businesses. So something like this becomes really handy, where you begin to define very specific locations within the building, whether it's based on a switch port or a MAC address, however you want to set that up, the chassis IDs on those pieces of equipment. So as a admin, right, a Teams admin and a Teams phone admin, you can get very, very specific with how you set up the policies around 911. And the last component is, what do you want to do when a 911 call is made? Do you want to allow a group of people to be bridged into that call to listen? Do you want to bridge them in where they can also interact with the PSAP? Yeah,
Let me say something that's really cool, because colleges deploy this pretty heavily, and there's on-prem devices that other organizations have sold for a long time that do something like this, right? Or even third-party services that people add. So again, I think about schools. When you have a classroom as an example, and you're calling for 911 support, and there's a resource officer, let's just say, right? And so being able to bridge in somebody when someone makes a 911 call, being able to bridge in, let's say, the resource officer, so they can listen to what's going on if there's a medical emergency or whatever it may be, so that you know what's happening in that classroom. On a mobile phone, as an example, while I'm en route to go check it out, right? So you know what's being communicated. So that's a really cool feature that bridging in people as you're dialing 911. I love that.
Yeah. So what you'll see up here and maybe a little small on the screen is you have that flexibility. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. Although again, there's FCC regulations and requirements around that. So just check your policies before you just set that to none. Send notification means it's just going to send a notification to the notification group that you define, and that's a Teams chat. And what's cool about it is it sends that Teams chat to whoever the people are in the group, or it could be specific people that you're defining, and it gives all the location data of the person who called 911. It tells you who called 911 and where their location is at. So very quickly as a business, you might see that someone working from home had to call 911, but you can still be a security or compliance officer within a business that knows, oh, we have the records for where they live. We can confirm that's the correct address, et cetera. I think you get the point.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, what a fantastic feature that is. And again,
Yep.
this is just sitting in Teams already. Like this is some of the granular features available in Teams, and this is just part of the 911 deployment stuff. I mean, and I don't know if you have the end user thing up, Brandon, but I can show my end user component that's got 911 sitting on it real quick, and I'll just show what that looks like, because it's amazing, right? Where you can sit in here and control. Here's mine, and I can say, okay, here's my location information. If I wanted to reset that, the geo location information would say I'm at 3322, and that's not my address. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go edit that. It's 3318, let's just say. And I'll be accepting any gifts and checks that anyone wants to send to this address, because it's actual. So then I'm setting up my location there, and I'm going to confirm that, and that's my location. Now it's set. When I make an 911 call, it's set to my address here. So
yeah,
if I went to someone else's house, I can just update that.
Yeah, and go back to that edit screen, because I want to point something out there. The other flexibility that happens here, and this can be set at a corporate policy level as well, but you'll notice you can add additional information. Here it says unit number optional, but you could actually add other things in there. You could say, I'm on the second floor of the house in the master bedroom or whatever. Yeah,
West Wing, want to keep. I'm in the West Wing.
You're in the West Wing. There you go. And that's going to send that data to the dispatchers to know how to direct emergency services to, hey, not only is he at this address, but he's in the West Wing, or he's on the second floor. So you can get very granular, as well as in the location policies within the Teams admin. You can also set those things, like, let's say based on Wi-Fi access point, you could direct dispatch to say, because we know the user is on this Wi-Fi access point, that means he's in, maybe he's on the fourth floor in conference room, 4.20 or something like that.
Right. I'm in the executive branch, buddy. That's what I'm in. All right. So let's get that confirmed and get that out of there. So I'll stop sharing that screen right there. But that's 911 in a nutshell, right? So when you're looking at how does 911 work in an organization, that's what it looks like. So let's walk through this, Brandon, because 911 was a big concern, and then call queues and auto attendants were a concern. Like, are they complex enough to route appropriately? And I think the auto attendant and call queue both. I think the call queue would be a good one to start. A good place to start and show what that auto attendant looks like, and what are the capabilities within the auto attendant, as an example. I mean, that's just going to be a traffic director, if you will. But I think it's interesting to share a couple of things. Number one, Microsoft's auto attendants are voice activated. And when I say voice activated, it's basically listening for your voice. So, you press or say one, press or say sales, or press one or say sales, press 1, 2, or say service, whatever it may be. But you set that up in the auto attendant to listen to keywords. And when they hear keywords, you can route off of those keywords. Yeah. And I think that's pretty important, that the voice activation becomes more and more a customer experience component. So you're not sending someone through your traditional sort of phone tree, like beep, 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 right? You can just say, sales, you know. And what's nice is that Microsoft is a leader in transcription and voice recognition, cognitive services, right? So they're a leader in that space. So you're not going to find yourself going representative, you know, representative. Like that's what we, you know, whenever you're listening for voice activated services, it's you know, I used to scream at a phone, but Microsoft has made it so that it's really, really good in terms of translation.
Yeah, and it also does a good job of being very clear and concise about, you know, double checking that, hey, I think you said, is this where you actually wanted to route? Instead of it just, you know, some of the older style voice prompt IVRs wouldn't necessarily do that kind of sanity check. They might just process the data and do the best they could on the assumption that it got it correct. And
Right.
so Microsoft gives you the option. I'm sure other phone systems are probably catching up, but it gives you that option to say, no, that's not what I said. Let's try that again. The other cool thing about Microsoft is, I'll just tell you, I've got one of my certified voice engineers is not a U.S. American, and so he has a native language that he speaks. And so his English, right, when he's speaking English, is very accented. And so Microsoft doesn't necessarily play well with that accent, except for they give you the ability to set up accents so that now Microsoft knows, oh, you're actually, it's English, and I'm showing it, let's see if I can get English here. You can add these different accents.
Oh man, that's cool.
I don't know if you can see that, but like you got a Canadian accent, you know, India, the country of India accent, Ireland, Philippines, you know, all these different options. And so you can go set these things up.
Let's listen to a Canadian accent. Can you play a Canadian accent?
I don't, well, I can't actually, because I'm trying to get my phone number reassigned to my demo user. So I can't actually call right now. But anyway, I just figured I'd point that out, that there's flexibility around, you know.
So hang on, let me translate that. So basically, if I'm in Canada and I'm setting up an auto attendant and I choose to use a Canadian accented English auto attendant prompt, I type it out. I say add the Canadian not flair, but the Canadian accent on there. And the auto attendant is going to sound like a Canadian English speaker. Right. And that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And how many languages are in there? How many not dialects, but how many
54 everywhere. Results. 54 results is what it's saying for languages.
I don't know if you know this, but Microsoft is a global organization.
Yes, they are. Wait, are they?
I thought they were just in Seattle. All right, that's fantastic. So you got granular sort of control, the auto attendant sound. Brandon, what about the routing? What functionality do you have within the auto attendant to route to? Can you route to call queues? Can you route to individuals? Can you route to, you know, directories as an example?
Yeah. Give me one.
Those sorts of things?
Yep. Give me one sec. I'm just quickly assigning my number back to my user. Okay. Yes, you have a lot of flexibility on the call flow. So once you've got the auto attendant, you know, set up, I've got a phone number associated to it, as you can see. Then, of course, the language is set. I get into this is where I start to build my call flow and routing logic for where I want things to go. So from, you know, when you think about it, you know, auto attendants are generally, you know, you can send calls to direct people, but, you know, usually you're going to want to send that to maybe a call queue to get a little more robust feature set before you send it to an end user.
Right.
So, in this case, I'm going to add a greeting. You can add your own recordings. You choose, but Microsoft supports the text to speech for your greeting. So if you were to call that toll-free number, this is the greeting that you're going to hear in whatever language or dialect that I've chosen. And then you get down into, here's the call routing that you were just asking about. Now I'm getting into the decision making. What do I want to do? Again, my greeting is instructing the user to press 1 or say sales to get to sales, press 2 or say support to get to support. And then that's where you set up down here under the menu options. You're setting up the dial options for DTMF, as well as you can't, again, really small on the screen, but that's the voice command for saying sales and support. So whatever you put in here is what you want to instruct the user to say. And then I'm routing it off to, in this case, I'm routing it off to a resource account that is going to go tie to another, in this demo, it ties to another auto attendant that eventually ties to a call queue.
Love it. Let me say something about 6 months ago, Microsoft carved off the permissions to control the call queues and auto attendants to a approved policy sort of person in the organization. And what that means, and I'll show that, Brandon, really quickly, because what's important about that is that you've got, just in the discussion that I had with a city a bit ago, you've got someone who owns the team's sort of admin, right? You got someone who owns the team's admin, and then you've got someone who controls the phone system. Okay. And so if you're controlling the phone system, you may not have the rights to go update the auto attendants or the call queues and things like that. Well, if you come into your settings and you have the permissions to go update the auto attendants and call queues, now I'm not the big team's admin. I don't have all the super permissions for the admin, but I can come in here and in my own sort of screen, my own, right off of the interface, I can now go and control the calls queue that you're talking about. This one's called sales call queue as an example. I can go update the greeting, add a greeting, play an audio file. I can go do the same thing that you were doing as the admin for this particular call queue. In addition, I can go control that auto attendant too. So if I need to adjust what that auto attendant is going to say, I can go adjust this particular auto attendant and say that. So granular control and granular responsibilities or distributed responsibilities. This is really helpful for organizations that have a lot of locations or that have several phone people that maybe aren't the people that are controlling that team's admin center fully, right? They're not the team's full admin, right? So that's pretty interesting. I think that's really, really important to share.
Yeah, let's since we're on that topic, I'm going to go to the policy for that.
Oh, good.
Just to show, like, there's, I'm going to highlight these preview options. They're not available GA yet, but I just want to show this is evidence of where Microsoft is heading with that delegation that you're talking about, where I can delegate the supervisor, or like in your case, maybe you're running the sales organization and you want to be able to control the behavior of your queue. So today what you get is what you showed. You get business hours, after hours, holiday greetings, but let's just quickly go through what's coming in preview mode that will be GA eventually. Is you can adjust time zone. You can change language. You can change business hours, holiday hours. Let's say inclement weather happens and you got to close. And now what you think about this, you can have everything pre-configured and you can literally just go in and say, hey, I'm going to drop my business hours to the current time now so that I automatically move to another treatment within the call flow. You can, again, once preview mode hits GA, you're going to also maybe be able to, again, this is all policy and permission based, right? It's the companies get to decide who has access to what. So one user maybe could have access to greetings. Another user could have a separate policy that's access to the call routing for business hours, what to do during business hours, what to do after hours. The other cool thing that's coming is real-time metrics, right? So you've got supervisors that want to know how are my agents within my queue performing?
Right.
We can now push out those metrics to, again, an approved person. And then we get down into
that's going to be massive, by the way, because right now we get metrics out of out of Power BI, and we can show metrics and we can show, but it's
And
called when it
it's
ends, right? When it
it's
wraps up.
post processed. Yeah, it's post processed.
And
And
so
so that
we can show that. So the real time stuff, that's going to be a huge, huge feature.
Yep, and that was so what we just covered there. That's the auto attendant, right? Okay, then we get down into the call queue where it's some of the same stuff where you can see you can adjust today. You can adjust greetings, music on hold, how voicemail is handled. But coming down the road again is language, who membership wise, who's a part of that call queue, who's not. And then we're actually, when you start looking at these things, you start to realize these are actual contact center features that we're starting to talk about.
I'm going to go there. I'm going to go
Yeah.
there in just a minute, because one of the things that that people often will say is like, hey, it doesn't have really the contact center features that I need. And I've got a pretty basic contact center. Let's just say it does all the queues. It's got advanced routing. Obviously you can route to any individual or feature or resource account, but having some of these components in there is really powerful. And in fact, I'm going to semi put you on the spot here in a little bit, because what I'd love for this to dovetail into is to show people an integration as an example, a real simple integration, how many clicks it takes to do an integration into a platform that, let's say, Power Automate's connected to already, and then show what that looks like within that. Because there's two things that I think are important here, Brandon, where we're going with this. When we're talking about call queue and advanced call queue routing for organizations, there is the voice enabled channels. And I really want you to show voice enabled channels, because voice enabled channels are just exactly what it sounds like. It's a channel that's created. Let's say it's sales or service or support that can support calls. And the group that can control that is going to be someone other than the phone system administrator. It's going to be someone that controls this particular channel, and you can pop people in and out of this particular channel. But again, there's chat and there's voice calls and everything into this channel. So I think that's important to show. And then because we're doing a Dynamics demo that we've got teed up later on, and Brandon's done the 3 clicks that it takes. Maybe it's 4. I mean, you can tell me what it is, Brandon, but
Yeah.
I want to show what that dynamic sort of integration looks like. Because again, this is out of the box, and this is what everybody needs to understand. This is, you turn Teams phone on, put some dial tone in there from a little G12 heart right there. You put some phone service on from G12, and now you've got all this functionality right at your fingertips, right from just a simple configuration. Look how simple it's radio buttons, yes or no. Anyway, let's do both those. That sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. So just real quick, there's a couple of really interesting ones I want to highlight here that, as listeners are, you and I talked to a certain pro sports team the other day, and they were really asking things about, what do you think is better for us around contact center, right? And this is obviously where our conversation's headed. But some things coming are like agent monitor, where you can barge in, you can whisper, you can coach, you can take over, all the things that these contact center providers offer. And this is all going to be native to the Teams phone system here in short order. I don't know the dates on when these are going to go GA, but I imagine it's probably sooner than later at this point.
Man, that's awesome.
So, and then you want me to show a voice-enabled call queue, correct?
I do. Show voice-enabled call queue.
Or a voice channel enabled.
A voice channel, yep.
Yeah, so let's look at, I'm trying to remember which one I have. Let's look at a sales. Let's look at the sales call queue. And again, the queue gets tied to the auto attendant. So let's say I press 1 for sales. Back on that main auto attendant, I'm going to get routed into the queue for sales. It's going to, again, you can prompt however you want. You can do music on hold, custom music on hold. And then you get into what you're talking about, the answering rules on how I'm going to distribute that phone call through the queue. You can do named individual users. You can set up, based on that, then you can set up round robin, longest idle, that kind of stuff. But right here, again, small on screen, there's a choose team option. This team is a team in your Teams client. So let me pull my client over here, make it a little smaller. Notice I fixed my phone number so I can actually show this. I'm
There
not
you go.
sweating bullets anymore.
Whew, whew.
But right here in Teams, I can create, let's say I don't have the team yet. You see, I've got this sales queue team right here.
Yes.
That's what's tied to right here. It's, again, very small on the screen. You can barely make it out, I think. It says sales queue, and it's the general channel within that sales queue team.
Right.
You can name it whatever you want.
Okay.
And as soon as you name it and you get your, maybe you're the IT admin, but whoever sets it up here, what you'll notice on this team is now not only do I have access to, the typical Teams chat where I'm chatting with the group and maybe sharing files over here between the team, but now I've got a calls tab.
Boom.
That
There
puts
it is.
me right into that queue. I can check the queue voicemail from here. I'm not sure why this is loading so slow. If it loads, I can take myself in and out of queue from right here.
Man, that's so this is what blows my mind here now is that you've got agent controls in here in the Teams queue, right? And in this particular chat channel, actually, it's a channel/queue. That's how you have to think of it, right? You've got agent control of entering, exiting the queue. Think about after hours as an example. If you've got an after hours queue and there's nobody in the after hours queue, when I say after hours queue, sorry, on call queue. Let's take an on call queue. Okay, that's a really popular thing. If you're an on call person and it's your shift now, right? It's your shift to take that after hours call or whatever it is, or whatever I'm talking about. Anyway, and now I just sign in. Okay, so I can just sign into this particular channel, and I'm the only one in this channel. Now I'll get the after hours calls in that queue.
That's right. Yep.
And so this is a great way. And I love that it puts the numbers on the other side. So it's not interfering with your normal voice channel sort of dial pad, your dial pad for your numbers over here. This is the queue dial pad. So let me ask you a question, Brandon. If you make an outbound call from this dial pad right here, what does that do? What does that go out? What number does that go out?
In my case, what I think is going on, I should still have, I would have the ability to choose my outbound number. I think what's going on, this spinning, I don't think, because I had to re-enable my voice, my number, I don't think Teams is done propagating the configuration.
Oh yeah, that's
so I can't show it from here. But let me switch to, I don't think I have him.
I've got it on mine here, so I can let me throw mine up here. So let me if we're gonna make a call from, let's say, that particular call queue, let me share my screen again.
Yeah, because we enabled you as a channel, right?
So if I go make a call,
well, real quick, go to your Teams. Go to your Teams and go to the sales. You should have a sales, calls.
Yeah,
that way we're on kind of that same screen.
So here we are right here.
Real quick, that's what wasn't loading on mine. See your name, you have that radio button. So that's what you were describing. If you're on call or whatever, you can come in and activate that, and now you're active and ready to take a phone call.
Take calls from that. So now if I'm going to go call a number, and I'm going to call. Now I can go choose. Am I calling from the sales queue number? If there's a corporate number that I'm looking to call from, or do I want to call as myself right there? So that's really just a cool feature, because again, as a channel, now I can communicate with everybody in the channel. I can start, I can write notes to everybody in this channel. Hey, can you grab this? I can't grab this, so as a content, this is like advanced sort of contact center stuff where you're like, this is real unified communications where you've got chat and voice blended into a channel that is controlled by, whoever, whoever set it up.
And then think about, and I don't want to get too far off topic because we're obviously, already coming up towards the top of the hour. Think about, the Azure Communication Service aspect of Microsoft's ecosystem, where now I've got this voice-enabled Teams service where, think about now on the front end of your website, you could put a virtual chatbot that ties right back to that same chat channel.
Mm-hmm.
Where multiple people can handle that chat. either
Boom.
simultaneously or one, however you want to set up all of that logic, and it's all tightly integrated through that entire Azure ecosystem for communication services, and then whatever you might want to do with the Power Automate platform.
Just as a point, one more thing I just want to throw. We're going to go to this Dynamics thing because I want to really hit home on this contact center stuff really quickly that's built into Teams. This is just a question that was asked. Overhead paging, door actuators that are activated via an ATA today back to a phone system, Brandon. Can those ATAs now, not the ones that they're using, let's just say, but I know that, let's say audio codes, ATAs, MP202s, something like that, MP101s, can those be configured on Teams as a SIP gateway device and then perform the same functions, opening gates, opening doors, using overhead pagers? Can those devices all be used the same way in Microsoft Teams?
The answer is yes, and I'm going to reshare my screen in a second, but I'm going to leave my camera up. Okay, you see this? This is just a good old traditional VTech analog phone.
Wow,
Straight up.
I think my grandmother has one of those.
Yeah, it's even got the big numbers, so you can read them. But anyway, this is just a old school VTech RJ11 analog phone, right? It's all it is, plain and simple. Okay, so let's bring up the.
If you don't know what RJ11 is, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's fine.
It's a really small plug. That's all you need to know. But right here, you've got this. It's what I've got this phone connected to is this Cisco ATA, and notice it says SIP analog device.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. I'm going to call my number and see if you can hear this phone.
You can't just talk about it. He's all about show and tell.
I got to show because it's kind of fun. Let me remove my screen, and then we can move on to
Dynamics.
The Dynamics.
All right.
Let's see if I can get this. Let me find my number. Demo time. Let's cross our fingers and hope this works. Okay.
That's my drum roll. Should I play a guitar?
Here we go. I got a low battery, so hopefully.
Look, he's like throwing anything out there now.
Yeah, because it's not ringing. Demo.
It's because it's not done propagating.
Okay, hold on. Let's do this. How about I call your cell phone?
All right, call my cell phone.
Okay. Oh, put in charge or the phone just died. Okay, never mind. I'm not demoing that.
All right. There we go. I didn't want to demo that anyway. I was just asking the question.
The point is we actually we already have customers today doing door actuation, overhead paging. So simple answer is absolutely yes, you can. And I think there's 3 or 4 certified SIP gateway manufacturers that if you're trying to retrofit a legacy system, but just so you know, our friends over at Algo now have a fully team certified set of devices for things like that.
Love it. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. What else, Brandon? Let's get to this Dynamics thing, because this is, again, I just want to hammer on this because this is this is the stuff that's in Teams out of the box. Show us how you're going to do. And we're using Dynamics just because it's a CRM that we've got access to right now. But if you were doing an integration, what does that look like from a configuration perspective? Do I got to get my API guys all queued up and let's get an SOW all worked out together so we can figure out what APIs I have to write to so that we can do this whole CTI thing? That's an old term, by the way, from the 90s, this computer telephone integration thing. Anyway, what do you think, Brandon?
That's from a basic integration perspective. No, not with Dynamics. Again, you're talking about the whole Microsoft ecosystem. So I set this environment up more so because we were helping explore this for a customer, and not knowing anything about this integration, it took 2 Microsoft articles and about 4 settings to change to instantly have integration into the CRM for calling right within the CRM. So I'm now logged in as this Alan Steiner. And what I want to show really quick here is I'm going to switch to Alan Steiner on my Teams. And you'll notice that I've got my calling right here, right? It's enabled. So think about traditionally, if you're a salesperson, you're operating off your phone and then you're sitting over here and you're trying to manage 2 applications at the same time, right? Your soft phone and your CRM. Now, right here, I've got this integration where I've just bolted in my dial pad right into the CRM. Okay. So I am strike 1 on my demo. So let's call Alan's number. I'll do it direct just so I don't have to go through a IVR. And let's see what happens here. 206. Now, a couple things should happen based on this integration. I should get a record pop based on who's calling, and I should be able to start working on that data. And if all goes as planned, we can also start to see Copilot in action.
Oh, that's exciting. Speaking of which, November 1st, Copilot became GA. That means you can go pay $30 a month and have Copilot at your fingertips. Let me just say, I've had a chance to play around with it a little bit, and it's going to, I don't know, like 10x someone's productivity. Writing emails, summarizing meetings, helping kick off documents and PowerPoints and spreadsheets. It's just, it's going to, from a productivity perspective, blow people away. Okay. So what am I looking at?
So here comes I was calling, but you'll watch my dial pad. I'm placing an inbound call. This is the Dynamics call.
Okay.
On my other screen, I actually have the Teams client is actually ringing as well, but I'm going to go ahead and answer right out of Dynamics.
All right. So I answer the call.
I had to mute myself really quick. And I should be able to get this record.
Oh, look at that. So,
and then obviously every business is different, right? The behavior of what happens in the CRM is going to be dictated by what your business logic flow is, right? This is just a quick demo to show that I can grab a record. I can see who's calling. Obviously I could tie it to call log. A lot of people want call logging, so I can save this as a call log. I could save it as a open activity for another person. I can look at the notes related to maybe this caller is called back in, and maybe there's notes that I can summarize. Anything that's related to that call history. And then I don't know. Let's see if Copilot will do something here. Probably. Here it goes. It's getting opportunity. And then you see, so I just opened an opportunity based on that caller. And you see right here, today's date is November 3rd. Copilot summarized everything you see on this screen. It summarized it into bullet points. So like, imagine I'm talking to the customer, right? I'm over here on my phone call talking to the customer, but now I can say, hey, customer, I see that, we're in discussion about these Cafe Grande, whatever they are, coffee machines for $44,700, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. And I can take notes. I can do, again, I've not left Dynamics, right? I'm doing everything out of Dynamics.
That's what single pane of glass has been the theme now for, the last, few years when it comes to contact center stuff, right? This is what blows me away is this, what you have here is a CRM and you've got Teams phone. Okay. There's nothing else except a CRM and Teams phone. Now, in 4 clicks, you said, I think it was 4 because I put my fingers up at 4.
Yep.
In about 4 clicks, you've done an integration into the Dynamics. And again, I think you can do some of this stuff with Salesforce as well. The screen pop and information gathering from Salesforce and HubSpot. I think there's like 200 or 250 different CRMs and applications that it's already coded to, essentially, right? So the APIs are already written to it. So essentially, I'm sitting in my let's say I'm a ticket seller, and I'm selling some tickets for, for a game of some sort. And I'm one of 10 people that are sitting there and taking inbound calls for people that want to buy tickets. Call comes in, I see this screen pop over here. It pulls up the screen for for Rick Garcia as an example. He likes the premium seats. He calls in. I see his history. I know I'm talking to Rick, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm right in your account. I'm right there. I've answered the call. I'm taking the call. The stuff is right in front of me. Talk about, again, efficiency in a contact center. And we're not even talking about any contact center software at this point. We're just talking Dynamics and Microsoft Teams Phone powered by G12. And that's
using the native Teams phone system to influence that call behavior through the audio attendant, the IVRs, the call queues, all of that stuff, to end up in, because think about it, I'm in the sales hub of Dynamics. You might have another organization that's in operations support,
billing,
right? Marketing, whatever. And I can have the same integrations for those different components within Dynamics.
Now, what were you saying that Copilot did on the other side there? Copilot summarized the account information. And so maybe I can say, my last sort of interactions with Rick, as an example, was he bought 4 tickets, for business sort of purposes.
So let's see if we can grab. This is a obviously a Microsoft demo environment, so I'm not. None of these are obviously real opportunities, but let's see if we can find just a random one that I can click on. Let's go Alpine Ski House. And right here, you see, I didn't click anything. Copilot automatically grabbed that for me. As soon as I clicked into the opportunity, it summarized the deal opportunity and gave me the highlight, the bullet points of what is probably relevant for the conversation.
So I know exactly where we're at, where this engagement left off last, and how I can best support this particular customer right when they call in, right from a single screen pop in Copilot.
And then if, again, this is Copilot. So I have an interaction where I can actually, there's pre-built, like summarize opportunities, show recent changes, but I can ask very specific questions. And I don't know this opportunity, but I'll say, how many machines does this want? And it's context-based. Try different request. It obviously doesn't maybe know, but
it's not selling machines.
It should know to go back and look at. It's interesting I didn't grab it because in other demos it would have. See right here, it says one cafe requirement. Anyway, Copilot is going to be game changer on top of the Teams Phone integration in any system, right? Like it's going to be huge.
Yeah, well, you look at this again from a contact center perspective. What are you always looking for in a contact center? You're always looking for, how can I present this information? What information can I present? Where, can I give you the knowledge base for the agent? I mean, this takes away that component from you having to go either find different vendors to kind of bolt in to deliver something like that, kind of the weird integration that it takes to deliver that. And you've got it all sitting right here. Teams Phone, Dynamics and or Salesforce, whatever contact center. If you've got Copilot as an example, pulling out that information and presenting to you that information, that's going to be it is going to be game changer, because I'm assuming you can put Copilot into a knowledge base of some sort to deliver the quickest answers for whatever questions they may have right instantly. And I'm sure there's going to be listening capabilities that you go, I can listen to it, and Copilot can basically say, here's what I would say. You know what I mean? So there's all sorts of, I think, advanced features that are exciting to think about with just these services out of the box, and a partner that knows exactly how to configure and deploy and support something like this. I think that's what's important, is that, from an organization perspective, if you think about how you're adding dial tone into your Teams tenant, you're looking for someone that's not just going to add the Teams tenant or the Teams voice services, but again, someone that can help you with the applications as well. And that's where, I mean, that's what we end up doing. And that's where, we try to put ourselves in the IT director's sort of seat so that you can start to answer some of those questions. Brandon, okay, we've gone through dynamics. We've got our call queue capabilities, call auto attendant capabilities, 911, which was really, really important. We've gone through devices as well, where you can go analog, where you can connect analog devices to it. You've shown us a cordless phone. As examples, I used overhead pagers and door actuators and gate actuators. I've used those things as examples. What are some of the other basic things that people are thinking about when they're talking about deploying replacing a physical phone system? Oh, I got it. You ready? Real quick. I'm just going to say this. I forgot. Redundancy. Brandon, I'm used to two things. I'm used to phone service with PRIs, and I'm used to internet. How can I address redundancy? And I want to see if you came up with the same exact answer I've come up with when I was actually talking to them. What kind of redundancy can I expect, or what redundancy is there when I'm working on a Teams phone system?
I mean, if we speak to the SLA, that should tell you everything you want to know. But is there a specific thing you want to know about redundancy? Like, how is a phone redundant?
How is the phone system redundant? So I've got an office, and how is the phone system redundant? Again, I'm just this is my quiz for you to see if you're thinking on the same wavelength as I'm thinking when I'm explaining to a prospective customer that's a city that's going, hey, how do I make this redundant? Because I've got my phone system in my closet here, and I've got, a couple of different, connections coming in to help me support that redundancy. Now, if I go to Teams, how do I do that?
I mean, it's Microsoft. Their phone systems are way more distributed than you would ever build your phone system on-prem. And then, from a customer perspective, how many ways do you have to get to the internet?
There it is. That's what I was getting at right here.
And I was just, there's actually two things, right? There's the mobile. If you talk about the mobile device, right, you have your 5G connection, which still delivers that service. But another topic for another day would be Teams Phone Mobile, which is a whole nother beast to talk about. So Microsoft gives you, 3 to 4, maybe 5 ways to be redundant. And here's the crazy thing is you're going to be redundant probably without even realizing you're redundant, because it's already going to be a feature you want to consume anyway. Mobile app versus desktop app as an example.
All right. Well, there you go. That was what I was getting at. I do want to share next week's show with you. Next week's show is going to be off the charts cool, because as organizations look to migrate to Microsoft Teams Phone, Brandon, what's the invariable question that we get? Obviously, all the phone stuff that we talked about today, we get all those all the time. But what's the question that we get that people are asking? How do I do this? How do I handle this? Do you know?
As far as common question, or
I'm going to say it right here. How do we handle our Teams rooms? Like, what is the Teams room sort of situation going to look like? I've got, 10 conference rooms that I've got to go outfit. What are our Teams rooms going to do? So next week, we've got Microsoft coming to the show. So mark your calendars, November 10th, 12 noon Pacific. We've got super prolific LinkedIn guys, Microsoft team over at Microsoft. We've got Michelle Bowman, and we've got Jimmy Vaughn. Jimmy Vaughn coming. Jimmy Vaughn, doesn't that sound like a cool ass? Yo, Jimmy Vaughn. It sounds like a cool. I think it's like a yo, Ricky, give him the heater. Come on.
So what
if
you're
you
saying
can name
is
that movie, if anybody can name that movie in the next minute, I'm going to send you a headset.
It's going to say you're making mafia references.
Okay, so next week, mark your calendars, November 10th. Jimmy and Michelle are going to come on, and we're going to talk about everything Microsoft Teams rooms. Okay, we're going to talk about how to manage Teams rooms, the different applications, different devices you can use in Teams rooms, how to keep those things updated. Lots of cool. They're going to bring us the latest and greatest and show us how easy it is to manage Teams rooms. And I'm super excited because that is a question that we get on the front lines all the time. How do you handle the rooms? And these guys are going to show us how to successfully handle Teams rooms and put some really cool tech inside your room. Did anybody comment on the room, on the movie? If anyone could get that movie, drop the answer in here, and I will still send you this headset right there. It's a Yealink BH71 Pro. I'll send this out to you if you can get the movie quote that's something like, give him the heater. Yeah, that's all I'm going to give you is give him the heater. I'm trying to do the voice too, and I've got a raspy voice today, so I'll give him the heater. And it's something to rhyme with Vaughn, but it's not Jimmy, it's Ricky. But if you can figure that one out, put it in there, and we'll send you a headset. Brandon, I think that's all we have for today. We've hit the top of the hour. We need to wrap this thing up. Why don't you outro us, buddy?
Yeah. Just a reminder for everyone, the time change, unless you live in one of the few states that doesn't do the time change, it's Sunday, so don't forget to fall your clocks back an hour. Sunday is the time change.
Boy, it's going to get darker earlier.
It is. Winter is on its way, but on that note, you do get an extra hour of sleep, so enjoy it, relish it, have a great weekend. Until next week.
Everything Teams Phone Live, episode 39, out. Catch you on 40.